In 202 BC, when Xiang Yu, ruler of the Chu kingdom, slit his own throat by the Wu River, his 4-year-long war against Liu Bang, soon to be ruler of the Western Han, came to an end. Xiang came from a noble family. Liu was born to commoners, eventually becoming the founding emperor of the Western Han dynasty. The new ruler of China deeply understood that he would face dark days ahead.
西汉的建立呢，是在长期的战乱之后，社会非常凋敝，民不聊生。凋敝到什么？《汉书·识货志》有一个形象的表述，叫做“自天子不能据四臣，将相或乘牛车”。
The new emperor was eager to find a way to lift his devastated new empire out of poverty. Liu Bang had no ready answer. One day, a minister came to pay Liu Bang. He introduced a new governing philosophy. Rehabilitate and govern without actions. The source for the suggestion came from a dialogue between Lao Tzu and Yin Shi.
老师，何为无为而治呢？难道君主什么都不做，就可以治理好一个国家了吗？
无为，并不是什么都不做，而是指有所为而有所不为。不欲以静，天下将自正。
老子认为，天下万物，包括人类社会每一个社会个体，他都有能力自己把自己的事情做好，他是不需要外在的力量的干预的。外在的力量的干预不但对事情不好，反而会把事情弄坏。所以老子就主张无为嘛。
老师，君主究竟应该怎么去治理一个国家呢？
治理大国，就像烹调小鱼一样，不要经常翻动，不然小鱼就会被翻烂。
小鱼很小很嫩，水分很大，你在烧制的过程中，你搅来搅去，没几下子它就烂了。
其实无为而治也有很积极的表达，就是顺势而为。所谓顺势而为，就是各种客观的条件提供给一个作为的可能，然后作为者顺着这个情势而实现他的目标。
Although Liu Bang was born into a very ordinary family, he was known for his profound insights. When he was told of the governing strategy of rehabilitating and governing without action, he readily adopted it for his empire.
汉初这个实行的这个经济政策啊，最重要的是2点。第一是鼓励老百姓去种地，就是恢复农桑，政府要鼓励他。另一方面就是减轻赋税。采取了15税1的办法，用这种办法减轻负担，用减负的办法让百姓的负担主要是农民的，农民负担减轻了，他都有更多的力量投入到再生产中间去了。
The economy of the Western Han Dynasty recovered slowly. However, governing without action worked much better after the demise of Liu Bang. When Liu Heng succeeded his father as Emperor Wen, he stopped all external wars and allowed the development of free trade. With gradual social and economic development, the Western Han Dynasty enjoyed peace and stability never seen before. The Western Han Dynasty became increasingly affluent, and the people lived an increasingly better life. At this point of time, Empress Do Yifang found the political ideal she upheld for the rest of her life. She wasn't well known back then, but it was she who managed to further the glorious development of the Western Han Dynasty. In 157 BC, Liu Qi, son of Emperor Wen, ascended the throne. He would become known as Emperor Jing. At that time, Empress Dowager Do was very old and had lost her eyesight. Nonetheless, she upheld the governing philosophy followed by her late husband. She believed that the ruler should refrain from interfering in the public social life. Instead, they should be allowed to seek their own development, and the ruler should offer only advice and policy support.
最高明的统治者，民众只知道他的存在。统治者谨言慎微，不随意发号施令，天下之事自然就会成功。
无为和自然应该是一对概念，他们所针对的对象是不一样的。那无为呢，是对着统治者或者管理者而言的，要求他们少干涉；而自然更多的是代表的一般人的愿望，表达他们希望自己的生活由他们自己来决定，由他们自己来选择。
Empress Dowager Do was devoted to Laozi and followed his philosophy. Given the role she played in governance, the Western Han Dynasty went on implementing Laozi's governing philosophy of rehabilitating and governing without action. The dynasty developed by leaps and bounds and soon enjoyed a period of affluence. After 41 years of governance by two emperors, the Western Han Dynasty enjoyed a long stretch of peace and prosperity.
文景之治的基本思想呢，就是，政府要尽量的减少作为，就是采用小政府的做法，让老百姓自己去处理自己的经济生活，这样农业生产就会得到恢复。因为政府一旦管事儿的话，必然要加重百姓的负担，这是文景之治的一个重要内容。另一个重要内容就是减轻百姓的负担，从15税一变成30税一。
The history of the Han Dynasty records the situation this way. The granaries were full, and governments at all levels had a surplus of money. The national treasury had accumulated so many bags of coins that the strings rotted. The national granaries were filled to the brim, and so grain had to be piled up high in the open air. Horses were in vogue at this point. Food for those guarding the city gates included rice and meat. Everyone was happy with life. Rules and regulations were observed, and no one sought to break the law. In 141 BC, Emperor Jing passed away. His son, Liu Che, ascended the throne. Although the new emperor was only 16, he was so ambitious that he followed a governing philosophy utterly different from his grandmother, the Empress Dowager Dou. The young emperor longed to see his empire enjoy a status and honor that matched its power and position. How could this be achieved?
汉武帝即位初年以后的话呢，这个时候他的祖母窦太后还在，他急于想推行儒家的这个政策，他重用了当时的一个叫申公的儒生，而且还启用了2个人，这2个人给汉武帝提了一个建议，这个建议应当说不坏，但是触犯了窦太后。这个建议是什么呢？就说今后国家有大事，皇帝直接处理，不必向太后去报告。这一下子把窦太后一发怒，就把王臧和赵绾罢了官，然后给他们下到监狱中间，要治他们的罪。汉武帝这个时候还很年轻，力量还比较单薄，他还没有力量和他的祖母进行较量，所以他做了暂时的妥协。
In 135 BC, the 6th year of the reign of Emperor Wu, the 70-year-old empress passed away in Chang'an. She departed knowing the Western Han Dynasty had become one of the most powerful empires in the world. However, on her deathbed, she worried where her grandson would ultimately lead the nation. The Empress Dowager's death served as the demarcation line in terms of the way to govern the country during the Western Han Dynasty. Immediately, Emperor Wu cast away the established non-action governance policy and turned instead to taking action. The emperor was ambitious enough for an even greater empire. Generals Wei Qing and Ho Chu-bing were dispatched to fight the Huns in the desert. They recovered the Hutao area, seized the Heshi corridor, and opened up roads to the western regions. This expanded the northern territory of the Western Han Dynasty from areas along the Great Wall to north of the Yinshan Range. The Youlan and Nanyu regimes submitted to Han authority, giving over what is present-day Guangxi and Guangdong to its control. With the Huns defeated, the Western Han Dynasty succeeded in expanding its territories. Its cavalry proved invincible, and the glory and dignity of the emperor full expression in the various expeditions. Emperor Wu was satisfied with these results. However, behind these shining achievements was an unbearably high cost that the dynasty had to pay. According to records of the Grand Historian, in 119 BC, Generals Wei Cheng and Ho Chu-bing led an army of 140,000 men to attack the Huns. General Wei Cheng obliterated 20,000 Han troops, and General Ho Chu-bing 70,000. After the war, only around 30,000 cavalry of the dynasty survived. Due to a lack of war horses, the Western Han dynasty was too weak to fight further invasions by the Huns.
这个打仗的代价，一个是死人，这个死人一个是战争的死人，还有一个就是因为前方打仗，后方要不断的要运粮食啊，运战争物资啊，这个过程中间也要死很多人，所以史书记载是汉的户口这个减半，这个数字准确不准确现在不好说，但是至少造成了国内人口的大量的减少。
In 104 BC, General Li Guangli led an army of 240,000 soldiers to attack the Dawan state. When he returned to the Yumen Pass, his army had been reduced to less than 20,000 men. The war was fought merely to obtain dozens of precious horses for Emperor Wu. In 90 BC, General Li Guangli was dispatched with 60,000 troops to attack the Huns once again. But this time, he suffered a humiliating defeat. The Han general defected to the Huns, and only a small number of his troops were able to escape.
汉武帝的40年的对匈作战，也把从文景以来70多年来的积蓄几乎在他执政的几十年中间几乎给消耗用尽了。打仗就是烧钱呐、那么烧钱你肯定啊，从这个军费的开支啊、军饷的开支啊，还有战略物资这些的这个消耗啊，必然就导致这个社会财富的大量的损失。所以到武帝的晚年，国家的财政已经不足以支持战争了。
Failure to support new wars was a major blow to the 66-year-old Emperor Wu of Han. From then on, he waged no more wars against the Huns. His lifelong dream was thwarted by bankruptcy. In 89 BC, in the Weiyang Palace, Emperor Wu of Western Han Dynasty promulgated China's first imperial edict to publicly admit his sins. He announced abolition of his severe policies, banned future wars, and encouraged agricultural production. However, this edict proved ineffective in prolonging the life of his weakening regime.
老师，为什么有很多聪明的君主，最终会失败亡国呢？
要想治理好天下，而又妄议施政的君主，他们为什么会适得其反？是因为天下万物不能凭一人的欲望而有所改变，轻易妄为的发号施令，让国家处于动荡之中，这注定会让君主失败呀。
In 87 BC, Emperor Wu breathed his last breath in anguish and remorse at the age of 69. In winter of that year, the Huns invaded the border of the Han Empire once again, which was an ironic end for his reign. Lao Tzu lived a secluded life on Mount Zhongnan for the rest of his life. He never imagined his Tao Te Ching would be studied over the next 2,000 years. Nothing under heaven is dictated by the will of humans or by God. However, the sun, moon, wind, and rain coexist harmoniously in the world. It is mere perfection. Its existence cannot be explained using our limited wisdom. This is just what Lao Tzu said with regards to the Taoism.